Hi guys, welcome to the Black Table. So without further ado, our guest is here, so I'm going to let Jay introduce her properly. Thank you so much for joining us. Go ahead and introduce Jay.
Yeah, this is a bit of a quick start off, shall I say. This is normally not normally we have a slight delay with everything, so this is a good thing. So we have a bit going on tonight. So as you can see, guys, we have our guests. If I butcher your last name, please forgive me.
No worries.
Please forgive me because I don't want to do this, but we have a bit going on. So we have our guest, Ariana. She is going to be joining us tonight. However, we also have a surprise guest joining us as well. And this is the, shall I say, Chief Operation President. Am I saying that right?
Chief Operation what?
No, I'm the president of scoring.com and the COO of Fission.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Look, I don't want to, but you know, I'm going through. I got both of your biographies right in front of me and everything like that. But you know, I just had to make sure. I know she's the vice president, so yeah, you do it.
You should have just sent me the bios and let me read them. You know I'm better at this than you.
You get where I'm going with this.
I got you.
All right, so we're gonna get started on Ariana's biography because hers is the longest, of course. So we're just gonna start.
I hope this is not your first time.
If you see this, right? So this is the difference, right?
You know you should have sent that to me. Don't
look ahead
and don't mess this up. I'm sorry, Ms. Co-host. We may as well be a married couple, but he's married, y'all.
So yeah, it's about to be. I should have sent this to you. Next time I will do that. I will do that. So, welcome to the Black Table, guys. We have some credit experts in the room, and you know, these people have been doing this for God knows how long, in which I look forward to hearing their expertise on credit repair and everything. Because I'm gonna tell you, I suck at credit. I'm horrible at credit.
I don't.
Ain't nobody teach me about credit. I probably have to get their services through credit. I'm just being dead honest. Credit is just not my thing right there. But this is why I bring people like these to the table that can give me knowledge and give you guys knowledge as well. So, the biography. So this is what we're gonna do. Ariana, I'm gonna say this slowly here. Almost over.
Yeah.
You got close.
I said I had to say this up. Okay. Always wears many hats in the businesses. She worked with manager, fancy office, decorator, and nurturer. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay. But in her primary job, Ariana keeps many aspects of her companies in check. So I've heard. From a very young age. Can I just replace your last name with your first name? It's just easier to say.
Yeah, no worries. You can shorten that biography as well.
Yeah. So from a very young age, Ariana has a passion for sales, which paved the way for her to become skilled in marketing and human resources as she gained experiences in marketplace in areas such as finance, insurance, credit services, SaaS, and CBD. Ariana realized one thing: all businesses have the same core processes in place. What changes are the details and products, which is true. Ariana has been with scoreinc.com for over 6 years, have joined the company officially by 2015. I quote, I started working with scoreinc.com during a challenging moment. From there, I was challenged to build the culture of the company while managing day to day and marketing side of the business. I'll probably butcher that. I'm sorry. As an administrator, Ariana understands that behind the success of many businesses, human resources is an asset to help keep the overall operations running. If you are looking for success, consider taking care of the essential individuals who are by your side. I wish we could tell big corporations that, because they're hard-headed. And they wonder why they can't find employees. The human resources of any business is a big asset to the company, says Ariana. If you can't market, sell, or manufacture your product or service for people that are behind you on your goals, how will you be able to satisfy the needs of those who don't know you yet? I do what I do because I want to help people. That is a very, very powerful statement there. Many companies, corporations, and stuff really don't take heed and pride in that. And even goes to those who starting off a business. If you don't know how to market yourself, obviously you can't present yourself to somebody who does not know you. So that is that's a very, very powerful statement for those of y'all who are looking to start a business, who's in this live right now. Her experience at scoreinc.com, nor any of her other. She hit me with the words today.
I wrote that. I wrote like half and half.
No, it's not. It's, you know what it is. It's just a lot of these words. I have a tongue twisting issue. So when you try to say it, it's just like it just doesn't come out correctly. So I'm in Endeavors.
Yes. Endeavor.
Okay. See, you gotta take me back to school with this stuff. This is bad. This is why from now on Mia will be doing these because this is bad for me.
You want to email it to me real quick and I'll just shoot through it.
There you.
You know what? So if I can, I'll probably shoot you Joshua's because his is shorter and
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie, his kind of intimidates me from all the.
I got you.
From everything she put in here. It's a bit intimidating. I'm telling you. I'm almost done with hers, so this is a good thing. So her experience at scoreinc.com, near any of her other endeavors so far has not been without its challenges, but she compares it to different diamonds in the rough. Every day is a challenge, but as time goes by, you keep seeing more and more that diamond. You keep seeing more and more, I think you meant to say, of that diamond that you and your team are working for. To anyone who's looking to get into credit space and are looking into scoreinc.com, she advised you found the home. It doesn't matter if you are experienced entrepreneur on the topic. At scoreinc.com, we have the subject matter experts in different areas of the business with over 30 years combined. Wow, that's a long time.
Yes, it is.
30 years? Oh yeah, I got some secrets to spill now. I know you do. These mixes and experiences what makes scoreinc.com what it is today. There's no title more important than the other. We are all on this together. Me, I'm gonna email you his bio because
shoot it over.
It's a bit tempting.
My OCD.
I think he did this on purpose. I think this was so on purpose. Like, this is one of them situations like, oh, so yeah, she definitely wrote all this on purpose.
I was gonna say you picked the wrong week to read a bio. You should
for the most part, you know, I am very, very glad to actually have you on the show.
Absolutely.
It had came to mind randomly because I know with the Black Table we was bringing a lot of different people on. And then, you know, obviously I was telling a lot of my platform that, you know, eventually I'm going to start bringing on educational, you know, shows and basically giving back to them as far as education wise, things of that nature. So, which is what made me reach out to you to see if you would be interested in joining. So I do appreciate having you on tonight. It makes me feel very, very great. So I can learn some new things. Mia, she can probably learn some new things. I mean, we're all here to learn, so it's just a good thing.
I was going to say the bottom line is most people have issues with their credit. People are sitting on 500. They thinking using stuff like Credit Sesame and those different sites are actually helping them, but they're giving bad information. You might have a 600 credit score and credit the free ones like Credit Karma are telling you you're like 50 to 100 points higher than that. And then they get a surprise when they go to car dealerships and different places. I've seen it. So people really need to know how to get those scores up. We don't need to see fake. We need to know what's really there. And my credit was something I had to work on after my separation from my ex-husband. My credit score was in the toilet in the 500s. Long story behind that, but now it's up in the 700s, and I'm trying to figure out how to get it to the 800s. So even I could still stand to learn some things as a single mom because I want to get it, you know, I want to get it as good as I can get it. So absolutely. Did you send me his bio yet?
Forwarding, I'm forwarding right now. Just
He
bear with
wrote
me.
an article on life after divorce.
Oh yeah.
And the best way to get started is separating your credit from your husband's credit as soon as you get married. You don't have to be on the home note. You don't have to be on the car loan. Both of you don't have to be there. Financial institutions, all they want to do is over collateralize. And when they do that to protect themselves, it's just like everybody. You always want to watch your back, as they say, right? But the reality is that you really you don't have to mix your credit. You don't have to bind yourself to your husband or wife. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a wise thing to do that, because certain things can happen to a couple even when they're married. They don't have to go through divorce to have bad credit, right?
That is true.
So
and I've heard that if they get one of you, they'll go after both of you if you're connected and everything. So it is good to have some space there so that there's some protection
absolutely
on your finances and your bill of goods.
That's something I actually do need to learn about. I've never actually heard of that. So that's actually new to me. I didn't know that, because I figure obviously you get married, everything has to go together. Didn't know that, that happens with credit.
It doesn't have to go together. That's the whole thing. That's what they want us to believe. But the reality is on our home, right, Ariana? Yep. We bought a home 2 years ago and here in Florida, and she's not on the note. I'm on the note. But make no mistake, if we get divorced, she's getting half or more.
That's not going to change what happens in the divorce, in the settlement. But
you know what? I like how he clarified that real quick. He said, "Hold up, I gotta save myself real quick."
That's like, love. That's what love will do for you. He said, even if we don't work out, that still don't mean I don't take care of her. And that's what a man does. That's what a man does.
Why? She's good.
Look, I'm not about to do that. I got like 2 women that's sitting right here in the same area as me, so I get jumped on live. I don't need to get jumped on live right now. That'd be a bad situation.
Look, even if you don't feel that way, just agree. Just say
I can't do that. I would say I cannot confirm nor deny the situation or the circumstances.
I was going to say, I still haven't gotten the email, but if you want to try to tackle it, you can, because I know we got to get into questions. We only got an hour with these amazing people, and we want
to. So I'm about to get for some kind of reason, my Google wants to be goofy, and when I click forward, it doesn't want to forward. It wants to instead create a draft, and then, So it's just, it's
Is
weird.
it coming off of a website?
I forwarded from my Dropbox to my email.
Okay. Yeah, no. It's not. I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I was hoping I could maybe open a site and pull the bios off. You want to just let him introduce himself and tell a little bit about his past experiences? That might work a little bit better if you're having an issue with it.
Well, no. I'm gonna tell you what I was always taught is nobody can talk about themselves better than the person themselves. He'll be able to literally break down everything, including that beautiful Tesla, because you think you slick, and I know I seen that Tesla. And
I don't know. I don't know what you fussing at him about. My dad literally just bought my sister a Tesla.
Listen. Like I wasn't checking out his Facebook post with the Tesla sitting up there, and I'm just like I want one. I want one of them things so bad.
Look, there is no engine in the front or the back. I'm like, anything with no engine, that's the future right there. There's trunk space in the front and the back. She'll literally call me and we'll be driving and she'll be up front and I'll be behind her in my regular car. And she'll be like, I can go from 0 to 60 in like 4 seconds. I'm just waiting on you. I'm like, girl, if you don't go.
Yeah. No, I like them. I'm not gonna lie. I like the Teslas. It's the Model S.
You're not gonna get a Tesla until you get your credit score straight. So we need to discuss it.
You're right. I get there. I'm trying to be just like them when I grow up.
So yeah, that brings me to my first question. What would you suggest for any individual who knows nothing about credit, has never started anything with their credit? Where should people start? Because a lot of people are like, I don't have a credit card and I don't really want to get one, but I'm like, you need something. So where would you suggest they start, people that are scary about that?
When you're young, you have let's say you worked on your credit, and you've erased all your credit or deleted credit because of information that couldn't be verified or validated on your credit report. Those
Mm-hmm.
situations, because having no credit is just as bad as having bad credit. From the eyes of the creditors, you are a person that has no background in their eyes. You really don't have a profile. And, they need to see a profile. The way that by looking at your credit and analyzing it, if it's for purpose of purchasing something, normally with a FICO score, right? And you know what? Guess what? The scores that Mia was mentioning earlier that you look at on Credit Sesame, all these credit monitoring applications, all of them do not use my FICO scores except for my FICO and Experian and maybe Equifax, which have their scores are FICO scores, right? It's all about economics, right? Who's paying who? FICO is the Fair Isaac Corporation. It's the company that developed an algorithm. It's a statistical analysis that basically looks at your credit and how you fare amongst your peers within that credit. They call it a scorecard. And you might have good credit, but that doesn't mean that you can go out and buy $1 million home just because you have an 800 score. You have to have equitable credit as well. You have to. So if you're accustomed to having maybe a $200 to a $500 to a $700 payment, they're not going to put you into a $5,000 a month payment because you've got to see if you can pay for that. So then other factors come in. So like your debt to loan ratio, your utilization ratios, and that's what's really going to profile whether you can really handle that loan or not, or whether you can get that loan or not. But fundamentally, I would recommend for new credit customers is that they go out and they start with cards credit cards that are like what do they
like secured cards?
Secured credit cards.
Secured, yeah.
Yeah, you use secured credit cards that report to the credit reporting agencies. And that's good to start building credit. Immediately once you've done that between 6 and 12 months, you want to go ahead and start looking for either a small installment loan in a bank that actually reports their banks and some institutions, financial institutions particularly, that only report when you have a negative event happening and not a positive event happening. And that shouldn't be that way, but they get away with it. So you have to be really careful with that. But choosing your creditor, institution upon which you're going to acquire that loan for the car, the home, or the credit card, really important too.
Absolutely.
They lend you the money doesn't mean that they can actually, or they're willing to report on it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I've noticed, like, even with a car loan, you put it on there, it shows up on your credit, boom. Okay, that's a good thing, and it can kind of be a bad thing and a good thing at the same time. But then when you pay it off, then all of a sudden your score will actually dip a little bit in some cases. And people fuss about that all the time. They're like, you're punishing me for paying off a debt.
Well, that's because you have to be cognizant of the fact of a few things. Once you start getting credit, now how much credit is sufficient credit? Yeah. Normally, they say that having a mortgage loan and let's say 2 to 3 credit cards, an installment loan, okay, and an auto loan is probably the best mix of credit. And mix of credit is important because
that's true.
Is worth about 50% of your score. Your utilization ratio of how you use your credit cards, okay, is important as well. That's where your score, FICO score. So what that means is that you have, let's say, to keep the number simple, $1,000 in available credit. You don't do, right? If you're Puerto Rican like me, you spend $1,000.
Please don't bring up the fact that you're Puerto Rican. That's my ex-husband was. And he spent a lot of money in denial.
You know what? My parents did not teach me how to manage my credit. As soon as I had my first credit card when I was in the military, that's the first thing I did. I got $1,000 worth of credit, and I spent $1,000 in the first month.
I mean, my mother literally took my checkbook at one point. She was like, this is what I'm going to do for you. Because I would write checks into the hole, and I knew the bank would cover it. So I'm like, Mom, it's not a big deal. She's like, yes, it is a big deal. She was like, so you either want to learn how to do this or you want to keep doing it your way. If you want to learn, give me the checkbook. I gave her the checkbook, and that was how I learned. I was like, you know what? Just show me.
Exactly. So utilization, what utilization is exactly that. It's like you having your mom in your back pocket, right? Or your grandmother, or whoever one that's preaching to you, you know, how to wisely spend your money.
Oh, yeah.
Save it, right? So that's a number. That's your KPI. You should be below 30%. I say be as close to zero as possible. That means if you have $1,000, you never spend more than 30% of that. That means you never use it. If you use that practice, you're never gonna put more than $300 on that card. That'll leave you at 30% utilization. Well, $300, you should be able to pay that off within a month or within a month. So let's say you pay the whole thing off in the first 30 days. Depending on the billing date of that credit card, it probably would not register utilization at all, and you'd be at 0% utilization, right? Which is awesome. You want to be as far from 100% as possible. Unfortunately, when you're young, you don't have somebody telling you how to manage your credit, because our are probably, you know, they're just as bad as we are, or worse. You know, I would say that this generation knows more about credit than the previous generations.
I feel like it's something that should be taught in schools, and it's not. They don't teach you business in schools, but you have a lot of people going into business that learned it the hard way, and now they're coming back saying you can hire your children, you know, once they get to a certain age, and put them on as dependents and take a tax break and do all this. And I'm like, if they would teach children this from the ground up, the way they're teaching them to code now. There are apps that teach children how to code and create computer programs. Why they're not apps that teach them about finances, about business sense, about money?
That's all about financial literacy. If you teach your kids financial literacy, that is a very good lesson to teach. You know, I agree with you. You said something about coding. Coding is a great way to resolve basic logic problems. I mean, sometimes I look at the generation today, and I'm 56 years old, and I say, and sometimes the way they look at it is completely different than the way I look. But it's because they have more information than I do. You know, they're bombarded with Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter.
They hit the ground running. 2-year-olds can swipe your phone and try to put your code in so they can do what they want to do on it. And it's just amazing to me to watch.
I think generation they want to learn financial literacy, and I agree with you. I agree totally. So going back to that question is your mix of credit. If you don't have that mix of credit, let's say that automobile was the only automobile you had on your credit, what's going to happen as soon as you pay that off? That your credit is gonna dip. You should. Now that's not a bad thing. It's just the way the algorithm is built. But the same way that you understand that it's going to happen to you because you understand what the 5 factors of credit are, right? 30% for utilization, 35% for history of credit, right? How well you pay. That's the biggest factor, right? Then 15% for the mix of credit, 10% for the type of inquiries, and the other 10% is for the length of credit, or the length of time you have your credit history. So, like for example, I had a credit card when I was in the military. That first $1,000 credit card, that credit card was taken off my credit about I would say about 2 to 3 years ago, and that once that credit card left my credit, my credit score took a 30-40 dip, and it's because it was my oldest account, my first.
I was going to say account age. I also think shutting them down was a good idea. I learned the hard way. Don't do that. Leave them open.
You really have to watch what you buy when you buy things on credit. The worst thing that I would say is what not to do, right? So when you're at the Gap, or you're at some place that has their own credit card, and they offer you that 20% discount, don't take it, because those types of credit cards are store commercial card, commerce card, right? What they're going to do is, once you don't utilize that credit for a period of months, they'll go ahead and say, well, this customer is not using this, so we'll take that money away and give it to somebody else that will spend the money, right? Because they have a fixed amount of credit at a corporate level. They have a fixed amount to hand out to all of their, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not using the line of credit in the way they want you, well, they're going to take it away from you. And normally that's in a period of 6 months. So you have to be really careful. If you want to have credit cards, don't do that. And store cards are the first ones that do. Stay away from
That was that, you
I
know,
learned that after Finger Hut and Pennington.
There you go.
It's
Never
funny to
again.
mention that because I know when I was working at Tire Kingdom and that was like before I started, and that was one of the things they wanted us to push was the Tire Kingdom credit card or whatever the case may be. And I know, like, I kept asking the manager, but they kept beating around the bush. Like, I was like, why are you guys pushing us to sell or try to push these cards on people? You know, and most people say no, and you know, things of that nature. And it was like corporate was like really beating down on us as to like, you need to push these cards, you need to sell these cards. So that makes sense as to what you're saying, because obviously, you know, I'm just an employee. I didn't know nothing about the corporate level or anything of that nature. So I was sitting there and wondering like why they kept pushing it down, why they kept beating us on it, and basically pushing these cards. But I've also heard customers come back and say they had a card, but then their account closed because they didn't, like you said, didn't use it within the 6-month period. Well, obviously, nobody's not going to need tires and oil change, depending on, especially an elderly person. If they're not driving as much, it's just going to sit there. They'll be the first ones to say, yeah, but they'll be also the first ones to lose that account too, because they don't use it. So that totally makes sense. And now it makes sense of why these places do offer that, because I never understood why they offered that. I just thought they were just being generous, truthfully.
Yeah. You know, and like going back to Mia's question, you know, once again, just to recap, is the best thing for you to do is to start looking, just type in Google, how do I keep, how to maintain credit. You're going to find a bunch of articles, but go to the MyFi website, go to our score website, or to one of our customer website, because we don't really do credit for customers. We have built a software as a service. We built a software as a service that basically provides a credit repair CRM to customers that want to own and operate businesses at a compliant and successful level, right? And what they use is they buy our software, and it basically manages their whole credit repair business from marketing all the way to the distribution process. So they can sell credit repair as a service, and they can even use us as a service bureau to go ahead and do their well. We never deal with the consumer or talk to the consumer at all. Back in the day, before I got started in this business, and that's a really long story, we used to have a credit repair business. Ariana, as she said in her book that she gave as a
I'm trying to tell you, man, this thing was long.
She went ahead and she was managing, and she administrated, she basically ran the credit repair business, and she did, and that gave me the opportunity to go ahead and sit back and look at everything that I was doing that I felt that consumers needed, and as a company I felt other companies needed, so that they could fast track and start up their businesses so they can get to where they needed to go a lot faster. And got me to building Score CEO, or designing Score CEO. I designed it. We built the software on the cloud, and it's grown into a very successful app, web app. And we went ahead and sold our business about 3 months ago to a traded company. So we did something right.
So
anytime someone buys your business, you know you're doing something right.
Yeah. So in the circumstance, like you said you created the software and things like that for those who want to start basically run their own business, correct? If you
wanted to get into the credit repair business, you're going to have some type of software that manages the process for as customers as you acquire, right? But not to also charge, bill them, and market to them, and do that in a way that can help acquire, lower cost of acquisition, and increase your closing ratios. Our software helps do all of that.
How can people, if people wanted to get on board with this, where would they go for this information? Obviously, they will most likely contact you guys, I'm assuming. Where would they go for this info? Or where can they find this information?
For Score?
Yes.
Yeah, scoreceo.com is the app.
Put that in the comments.
Say again?
I'm going to place that in the comments for the audience to see. You said CEO?
Yes, scoreceo.com is the name of the software, and it's got its own website. And scoring.com is the original website before we developed or released Score CEO in 2016.
All right, score.
Yeah.
Ariana just put it down there. Scoreceo.com, guys.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna pin that comment so that way people can see that.
You know, and when I was in the automotive industry, and I was the general manager for a dealer group, and my credit was horrendous, and I was afraid of buying my own car at my own dealership because I was afraid that the bank officials that were giving credit to hundreds of customers, it was a big group, dealer group, you know, they would see my credit. Credit is something really personal. It's not like you go there and you start talking to your friend, hey, what's going on? You know, hey, my credit's 720. How's yours doing? It's not a conversation that you have.
That's really not a
Because
conversation.
it's so personal, right? Because it really shows, it shows your flaws in reality.
Yeah.
And we all want to seem that we're better than what we are. We're all worried about that. We're all more than less. The reality of the fact is that most people have a less than perfect credit. Less than 5% of the country has scores above 720. And if you're above 720, you're in the 5% group. That 95% of the country, nobody's talking about their bad credit.
That's true. And you know, when mine was bad, it's like you didn't want to say anything about it, but you definitely was looking for a way to fix it. Because I am in the 5% now, but it took a lot of money and time to get there because I had to pay someone to help me strip that credit score, rip it apart, pull things off that didn't belong after things were paid off, all of that. Because I was determined. I'm like, no, I got children to think about. I got a future to think about. If I wanted to be in publishing, I'm like, I cannot be running around with a bad credit score and be in business. I cannot. So I had to.
What do you recommend, or what would you recommend for those who, let's say, those who are pretty much good at managing their credit? What would you recommend as far as like paying off certain things? Like, let's say, for instance, like for me, for instance, you know, anytime I use a credit card, they send a statement. Once they put the statement, pretty much I pay it off in full. I always pay it off in full. I never have a carryover balance. Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
Well, if you wait for pay, that means that you're already not that you're paying, but you're already utilizing part of your credit. Remember, we talked about the utilization ratio. If it was already printed on your billing statement, that means that some sort of utilization was reported. Now, they say you have to have some utilization, and that depends on the types of credit cards you have, right? I keep it as close to zero as possible because it's almost never going to be at zero unless you make a ton of money and you're really not, you know, your credit cards, you use them as more of a convenience tool. Well, the reality is people are not doing that. They're buying now and later. They may be able to pay within the first 30 days. You should it's really knowing about within your limit, not spend within your credit limits, spend within your within your own monetary, right?
Yeah.
Because we have that credit card, we sometimes we kind of up the ante a bit, right? So I would say if you want to keep your credit and you can, and the best way to do that if you have great credit, pay within 28 days. So if you've bought something like Amex card today, a general rule of thumb, pay a week. Okay? Don't wait for that next 30 days to come up. Pay it off in 2 weeks, but don't go days from your billing. So the billing cycle, if you look at your credit card statement, you've got the billing is the day you get your bill, but it's somewhere tucked in the corner or in that billing statement, there's a billing date. That billing date is the cycle date. That is the date that started to calculate the interest on that money. Sometimes, depending on the credit card, you might not pay up until that day. So this will also help money over time. Your credit cards. Why? Now you can move credit card debt from one credit card to another. So using your credit cards helps you become creative with some of those, with some of that spending as well. Let's say you have to go. Let's say you have to spend $10,000 in a month, and you don't. You can only pay $5,000 on credit card, right? So let's say you have 3 credit cards. You can pay. You can, and you had that credit in one of them. Use one credit card, pay what you can off, and pay the other balance with the other cards off in 30 days or 28 days. And what you're doing is you're yourself afloat.
Yeah, you're rotating it around before it really has a chance to hit and cause a negative. That's really smart.
So you've got to be able, that's just the technique, but you've got to be careful with that, because remember what I said, I'm going to repeat it 100 times. That's when you made that first big expenditure happen, and credit card companies are kind of slow. They'll go ahead, and as soon as they see that you're paying and you've got zero balance, they're kicking up that limit without even asking. They'll bump the credit limit from 1,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 7,500. Then all of a sudden you got $1,000 spending limit, and before you would only spend $1,000. So you said, then you do that. Oh, Joshua told me 30%. So that means I can spend 3. No, I can spend 4,500.
No, I try to keep it under 10%.
No, don't do that.
I try to keep it under 10. I don't care if it's a $10,000 limit, and I got some $10,000 limit cards. I keep it under 10% because I'm like, responsibly, if there's an emergency, then I can hit 30 for an emergency. But an emergency is not if your bills are paid, you got a roof over your head, and you at home. We are in the middle of a pandemic. Most people at home, that is not an emergency. Just because you want something, it is not an emergency. And people do that a lot. We have to make we have to make smarter decisions, even with our money. Because like you said, even when you guys were saying, putting it on a credit card. Okay, well, you still got to pay that back at some point. So that money is coming from you later. And we don't make smart decisions, which is why we stay broke. As a community, we do. We spend way too much on this stupidest things sometimes.
Experian and Equifax and TransUnion, and they're in business to make money. I'm not gonna. If I was Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion, I'd be doing exactly what they were doing. Without using predatory lending practices, which normally they do not. But they'll go ahead and, just like Google profiles you because you're clicking on a website and downloads a cookie to your laptop, and all of a sudden you're watching Hulu and all these commercials about what you were just searching on is showing up. That's the same thing that the credit reporting agency.
The internet is listening. Apple just got sued for that, using Siri to listen in to conversations and tailor ads.
It's crazy because what we're saying is that definitely true. I've been seeing a lot of that as far as like lately, because I've been looking into a lot of stuff, and I didn't really start understanding money and finances up until basically when I started running my own business. That's when I started kind of learning and understanding finances, because I was horrible. I ain't gonna lie. I was really horrible. But I also knew that, okay, if I wanted to run a business, I need to straighten out somewhere. So I needed to start with myself, and then I could transition into running my own business and things of that stuff. So now I'm very, very tight on like how I spend my finances and things of that nature. But that is true. Like when I be looking online and stuff, the internet is definitely listening, because every time I could be on Instagram and all of a sudden Credit Karma will pop up, or another social app will pop up out of nowhere. And you're just like, I was looking at that like maybe 2 weeks ago. Why is this popping up now? And then it just keeps consistently popping up until you decide to say, all right, hey, let me just click on it, see what they offer. But now, like you said, they're offering you, hey, you're pre-approved for $300. You're pre-approved for $500. So it sounds good. You go ahead and do it. Now you've been hit with a hard inquiry, and now you're just like, I shouldn't have did that, because you are. If your credit's not good, they're going to decline you. But you're right. The internet is definitely listening with that.
That's another thing, that within the 5 factors of credit, where I mentioned that it's important, right? Asking for too much credit is also a problem. Back to that example, it's called a convenience or a convenience card from some type of store, penny, or, well, let's not use an example. We're almost out of business. But let's say
if your audio is a bit choppy, I'm not sure if it's because of if you got a phone case. Sometimes the phone case that'll do that.
Yeah, so can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, so I was saying, let's use an example like let's say the Apple Card, right? You go to Apple,
Yeah.
you get your Apple Card, and then you start that's a pretty good credit card because it's a card that actually helps you spend, and it tells you and it analyzes, and even though they want you to spend money because they make money on every single on every single dollar they generate on interest, they get paid off of that. There's some sort of joint venture between them and MasterCard. It's just the way it works, right? That's okay. This, businesses are there to make money, but going ahead and doing predatory practices to try to entice you to overspend without educating, that's what I disagree with. I think that most people that need to acquire things are probably ignorant of on how to acquire the funding to acquire those things, and they're learning as they go along. And when they make a mistake or take a or make a or make the wrong turn, what happens is that the credit card companies are making money. And like Mia says, and sometimes there are certain people that they live that cycle all through their life, their whole life cycle, and they just don't move, and they'll make more and more money, but they just can't get out of the rut.
It's like no matter. It's like you'll pay $100, and I remember doing this with my Amazon card, and I had to learn. The pandemic helped me with that because when the pandemic hit, cards like Amazon gave you a break on interest and payments, so that gave me a second to play catch up, and that was how I got it paid off. But I would have like a $5,000 limit, and I spent about $3,000 of it. But their interest rates were so high that paying $100 or $150 on it, only about maybe 20% of that was going towards the actual initial debt. The rest of it was going towards interest. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
That's exactly
This is the cycle. This is the rat race that they keep people in. And so when I got it paid down, I let them keep increasing it. They bumped it up to about $10,000. I'm like, y'all out of your minds if you think I'm this stupid. Not no more.
So we mentioned the mix of credit earlier, right? And watching how you get what types of credit to have. The other thing is how much money you have to spend. So you have to watch what you're purchasing based on your debt to loan ratio. Yeah. Okay. So when you go to buy a home, they really don't look at that with a credit card, but they'll definitely look at it when you buy a home. And when you buy a car, they look at that as well, but it won't weigh as much as with a home or less with a credit card. So you have to be really careful about that. If you have an 800 score, you can't. That doesn't mean you can buy a home. You have to have the correct earning potential as it relates to how much you spend and how much of that is going to be spent on the new home that you're going to acquire.
We're talking about debt to credit ratio, right?
We're talking about debt to loan ratio.
Okay.
Your debt to loan ratio, your DTL has to be, I would say less than 40%. If at 40, and there's numbers that say about, you can probably get up to about 48%, depending on the type of home loan that whether it's an FHA loan or whatever. But you never want to be at the borderline of anything. If you're going to plan your finances right, make sure that when you earn, you spend, less than 20% of your money. Okay. And you save all the rest, and you live with and the difference is what you live with. Right. That's something that we don't do when I started out as a kid, maybe making, $1,500 when I was in school a month or whatever, because I was a student. And then when I bumped it up and started making a couple of grand a month, and then when I started making when I first made $10,000 a month, I thought I was rich.
The more people make, the more they spend in this world. There needs to be a cutoff point where you spend, and it levels no matter how much more you make, or you're never going to make any real money.
Exactly. Never. If you do not understand how to control your spending, your problem isn't your credit. Your problem is that you don't know how to spend your money. You need to control your
money.
Have a cutoff. Making lists helps, is what I found, especially when you're taking care of a family. You got more than just yourself to think about. List your debts out. They say make a spreadsheet or a chart and see where your money is going. because a lot of
Exactly
that
right.
stuff, you don't even realize how much you're spending on your subscriptions for home, buying the kids toys, and that stuff gets very expensive because every time they break it, you're spending some more. Women like to go get their nails done. We like to go grooming. We like to do all of these things that cost money, getting your hair done. And we don't realize that over and over again. And one time, and I
Easy on
apologize.
that now.
What?
Easy on that now. Easy on that now. You know the do got to get done.
Lord. Well, you better find a cheaper hairstylist, okay? You can, wherever you can cut corners, you need to cut them and save that money, because in the long run, you don't know
Absolutely.
if that income is going to continue to come in. Anything could happen. The world could literally, the economy could collapse. Your sources of the people that are paying you and supporting your business could stop because they can't afford it anymore. And that's what people don't think about. That's why rich people, and I've heard this from other rich people, and I've talked to a few of them. They're like, you know how we stay rich? We act like we're poor.
Well, let me tell you, that's a funny story. You know, I've spent so much money on vehicles. It's ridiculous. It's because I didn't know any better, and I don't have a vehicle right now. I don't have a Tesla. That's my wife putting stuff on my Facebook page. Right?
She
runs around in an X6. She runs around in an X6 though.
Look, happy wife. He taking care of you, right? He treating you well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm the best passenger there can ever be.
And you know what? That's a sign of a healthy relationship and a healthy money management system. If y'all can share everything and you say, I don't have to have it if you have it. We both got it if one of us has it. And that's good enough sometimes. Because again, even the richest people, man, there was a repo show that literally repossessed things from millionaires. I watched a millionaire's jet get repossessed, and I'm sitting there like, how do you get a jet repossessed if you could afford it in the first place? What is wrong with people? Like, these are the shows. My mother will call me and she'll be like, turn the channel, this, and that. Look at this. And she likes watching Repo Men and that kind of thing. And we'll just sit there and have these conversations. And I'm like, Mom, there's just no way.
She just likes the drama. She just likes the drama.
She does. She watches Storage Wars, all of it.
Yep.
So
yeah, even rich people have money problems. They don't know how to spend properly. Even rich people have money problems. It's not just poor people. It's not just middle class. Everybody needs.
I am curious about. Why is it? Because I noticed this a lot. Why is it a bit harder to buy a house, as opposed to buying a car? Like we already know, a car depreciates value after a while. If you're driving and so forth and so on. But why, like? Obviously, you're pulling a loan on both. If you want to get a car, you have to pull a loan on it, unless you got the money. Or if you're buying a home, you have to pull a loan on it. But why do you have to go through extra loopholes buying a home as opposed to, well, if you buy a car, you can kind of ride off the lot with it the same day? Like, what's the difference between the two?
The first thing is the amount of the debt. That's the first thing. So the amount of the debt profiles a greater risk, right? So based on that, they have, when you're loaning $200,000-300,000, the average home value is about $250,000 to $300,000, depending on where you live in the U.S. But let's say it's 300 grand. That's a big difference between 300 grand and $35,000 or $30,000. So that's the first difference. The second one is that normally those loans are for 15 to 30 years. So you have to be really careful on who you lend that money to, because you're taking a risk, and that's going to basically dictate what APR is going to be used to calculate that risk to that consumer, right? And then there's a lot of insurance, and there's just a lot of laws that you have to deal with, like the Truth in Lending Act, and a bunch of credit repair organizations. There's just a lot of laws that entail and detail everything that you have to do with that home. It's a more complicated process. I think that if vehicles were lent out with that same type of criteria, I think nobody would have a vehicle, or there would be very few people with vehicles. I mean, it would be a lot less. If you look at other countries, like we have employees in Pakistan, for example, right? you know, they don't understand the concept of credit. It's because there's really no real credit system in their country, you know, and everything they buy is cash. I mean, they don't have rental units. They have to live with their brother, their sister, their mother until they've made enough money and saved enough money to buy a home. That's really difficult, you know. But in other countries, that's the way it is. So we've got that privilege in the U.S. and there are other countries that use credit systems throughout the world. But in reality, homes are probably the most difficult thing to purchase as a consumer. When you're in business, though, your credit is looked at differently. It's based on the ability that you have to generate revenue versus and the ability you have to retain earnings capacity, right? So the better you pay your bills, is obvious you have to pay your bills on time, but you also have to be able to show you have to show the banks that you're responsible enough to manage the growth of that business and be able to spend that money wisely to be able to grow while at the same time earning money. You know, there are some companies that, for example, you know, big companies that will probably spend more money than what they will make because they're growing their business. You know, it's something they have to do. They have to hire the employees a year in advance to realize earnings potential a couple of years down the road. And, you know, that's something similar to the space where I'm at right now. We need to grow a lot more. The company that purchased us is banking on that we're gonna release software that can help our customers really supercharge their business. Consumers, help them supercharge their credit as well. So that's why we were bought, right? We were purchased because of our technology and the space and the niche we're in, because, you know, there are 40 million Americans, according to the Federal Trade Commission, that have less than perfect credit. Okay. Yeah. And then you add to that about 30 million people that were unemployed during the pandemic.
Yep. Yeah, true.
You know, there's 40 million that have, you know, over the last, you know, let's say 10 years, 20 years, over time, have grown into that 40 million number. You know, in 1 year, how many of those customers that have 30 million, that of those 30 million Americans that went through some sort of unemployment or stopped working, or their businesses, you know, had to shut down temporarily, or they had to shut it down completely? You know, all of those customers are going to have less than perfect credit, even though they're protected by the CARES Act in some respect. Guess what? They're going to need a credit repair organization, or they're going to have to understand the dispute process to be able to go ahead and dispute some of those items. And that makes this space very attractive right now for the next couple of years. I'd say between the next 3 to 5 years. So it's a very good business to be in the next coming years.
That actually just, you know, I mean, you technically just answered my question as far as the business side, because obviously, you know, me being a new business owner and everything, things are different. Things are way different as opposed to like when I used to work for somebody. Then you would show a pay stub and, you know, you had to go through your normal stuff. Now it's, you know, tax history and, like you say, you know, how much is coming in through the business, how much is maintaining and staying in the business, and things of that nature. So there's a lot of questions that
how much you pay in taxes is also important as well.
Yeah. See, and that's the thing. Like I just went ahead and hired an accountant because I was like, I ain't got time for this.
Well, that's the right thing to do, though. You know, if you make a buck and pay taxes on the dollar, you know, pay it, because that you want to grow your business, pay your taxes. You know, do whatever you can do to save on taxes legally, but don't hide your money, because if you hide your money, nobody's going to know. And guess what? When you need more money, and you will, if you're successful, you will, you're going to have to explain yourself. And, you know, saying to a bank, you know, the first couple of years, I just went ahead and hid, you know, all my money, and so I can get away without paying taxes. That's not the best way to start a conversation with the bank.
And you know what? I've had that conversation with a couple of people. I'm not going to name any names, but I've said how some people in business, I'm trying to figure out a nice, polite way to put this. They take out huge amounts of money in loans from banks that trust them, and then they declare bankruptcy so they don't have to pay it back. I'm like, that is a slick but a really low down thing to do. You should not put yourself in a position There are so many things that people work hard to not have to work hard. And in some ways, I respect that. But in other ways, I'm like, at the end of the day, not only are you destroying your credit, you are making it harder for the next business person that comes in, because people are changing their business models based on past experiences with people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it harder for small businesses like mine, for example, to take out loans and things. And don't get me wrong, I've been able to get them. And I know that like loans that you take out, they don't hit your credit, or at least I've been told this, and you can confirm this. They don't sit on your credit score the way car loans and house loans and things do. Like when you
are you talking about commercial credit, Mia?
I want to say yes, because I took out a business loan at one point to help my debt, help all of my debt and consolidate it, and it did not show up on my credit score. But that was through my business.
You do not personally, if you do not personally guarantee that loan, you're absolutely correct. And even then, it may not show up until you default, if you default, right?
Yeah.
You won't. But that's exactly right. You know, sometimes like yourself, you're building a business, you got an accountant, and you probably don't have, your bank account is probably no different than your personal account. Well, that's the second thing. When you open up an LLC or a corporation, that you want to step away. You want to run that like a true corporation. Board of directors, even if board of directors is a board of directors, okay, you want to run it exactly as if it was not an extension of your person. Because actually, if you make a mistake and you their bankruptcy and you run that business as an extension of your credit, as an extension of your person and corporation, you know, you could, and I'm not practicing law without a license here, but I can bet you dollars to donuts that you could destroy the corporate veil and protections offered to you like banks around that. You have to be careful with that.
I was going to say, and business credit versus personal, I don't know exactly how they measure it. And they said there's a lot of secretiveness in what they look at to value your business as far as your credit scores for that goes. But do you know anything about like when people are looking at their personal credit versus how to build business credit? We know how to build personal credit, like you said.
I'm not a business credit expert, but I'll speak to what I know. And normally things like Dun & Bradstreet are basically companies that dedicate themselves to ranking the efficiency upon which businesses pay their bills.
I've heard of them because you get a DUNS number. They said that's super important to your business.
And you get scored as well. You get when you have a DUNS number, they have some basic information that on your business credit that they're going to report on if somebody asks for that information.
Yeah, we were talking about that in the second episode, second episode, we were talking about that.
DUNS numbers and get them because most people don't have one. We think having a tax ID number is enough, but that DUNS number is very, very important to your business. We just don't exactly know how it fits in, but we know it's important. Heard enough about it.
And that's one of the areas, and that's really that you should, as soon as you can, you know, that's something you have to pay to have a private company. Dun & Bradstreet, they'll basically send some information for you to fill out, and then you have to report your earnings, report things to them. They'll go ahead and generate. Even if you don't do that, they'll probably, and you're part of DUNS, they'll generate some type of score. And that, if you're gonna, for example, if you're gonna go ahead and let's say you're using, we work with a brand called Fighter's Choice as well. And let's say we wanted to float that inventory at Fighter's Choice, right? And we wanted the bank to lend us on that inventory, or to extend us, or for our suppliers to extend us credit, let's say for packaging equipment or for packaging, right? We them with a check, we're going to, for them to give me a net 30, right? Or net 60, net 90, whatever. Okay. That type of relationship, if they were smart, they'd probably go ahead and Dun & Bradstreet, check and see what we're doing on Dun & Bradstreet and how we're paying our bills, and they would extend credit based on that. Other than that, you would have to spend some time paying them as a customer for X amount of time until they felt comfortable that you could pay your bill on time at a commercial level, so that they can extend you maybe 15 days credit, and then do that for a bit, and then they'll take 30 days. You know, this is just from my experience. This is something that helps you move your business in the right direction. So that logically might not be a problem that you have on day one of your business. Maybe they 180 days within your business, but maybe a year or two down the road when you want to scale, sometimes your scalability will probably cost you more than what you're currently earning, and that's when businesses start to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay.
You hear about a lot of businesses going under from things like that, and I mean, it's a scary thought because you put a lot of effort into your business, and I watch shows like Shark Tank, and I hear them say things like the first 5 years of any business is going to make or break you. You shouldn't be trying to make money off of it. You should be trying to grow it. You should be trying to build it, and you're not going to make a lot of money. And if you are, you're either extremely lucky and extremely rare, or you're about to tank that business because you're not going to have the money to put into it in order to grow it to where it needs to be, because you're taking something out of it and you're spending too much. So yeah, I hope this stuff is helpful to everyone here. And guys, remember, you can go to scoreceo.com to get more information. And I'm sure there's a spot on there where is there a contact option where they can reach out? Is there a subscription they can get?
They can go to Score CEO and they can fill out any of the opt-in forms. They can you can use the software for free, no credit card required. They don't have to stay. I don't even have to give us a credit card. I really want anybody that wants to go ahead and use this software. They can use it for free. Limited in the amount of customers that they can go ahead and use and sell credit repair to, but it has the low barrier to entry in the industry. Everybody else is asking for something. I just want your email and your name so we can correspond. If you want to grow your business, we've got salespeople, consultants, customer service people that can help you at different levels. Go ahead and help you supercharge your business if you're willing to do it. Really, Score just gives you the tools. We think that we give you the right tools. We believe that, but quite frankly, we're not trying to sell somebody an opportunity that doesn't exist. It's really up to you. Either you make it or break it. If you think it's something easy and you want to do something that that the software is going to drive your business, you're in the wrong business.
No, you get into things you get out of things what you put into them. That's what I was always taught.
You gotta hustle. You gotta hustle. You gotta do your job. You're gonna make some mistakes, but you're gonna overcome them. But you have to work your butt off. You don't.
I went through that point in my business where I literally started selling things in my house online to make extra money, or working from 12 to 5 a.m. and then sleeping and then getting up and hustling my business. You have to really believe in what you are doing, because that's why most people start a business and then they stop and say, I don't want the headache. But you're going to have a headache if you're new to anything. You cannot give up.
And it's very stressful. The fun part about it is, like, with the business, and this is for those who's in the comments and stuff like that, who's watching. If you believe in what you do, honestly, it becomes fun. Like, for what I do and for what I do for my business, this is very fun. Having a talk show is definitely, with my co-host, it's very fun. But, there are some stressful behind the scenes that sometimes I just want to just rip my hair out, because you do run into that era where it's just like, the thing about that is that I knew what I was getting myself into when I said that I was no longer working for somebody else. Once I put that in my mind, that I knew for a fact that I was done working for someone else, I already knew that running a business would come with stresses, and it would come with highs and lows and all that stuff. But like you said, it's based on how you manage it, because a lot of people do start businesses and next thing you know, oh man, I gave it up because I couldn't handle the stress and this, that, and the third. But it's also, it's not just the stress, they got so used to the security of having a paycheck. Because obviously if you work on a job, you have a security of having a paycheck coming in every single week or every 2 weeks. The security is there. When you're running a business and you're either, a sole or, S corporation, whatever, you got to get out there and you got to get that money to come in some way, somehow. And that's something that I face every day, because every day, let me tell you, like, I woke up 4 o'clock this morning. I went to bed at 9:30 last night, woke up 4 o'clock this morning. I just wanted to see if I can go to bed and sleep for maybe at least 8 to 10 hours. Yeah, couldn't happen. I woke up and I'm like, I got to get to work. And I start posting and start doing stuff on social media and start doing. It's just it's something that keeps you up if you really are passionate about it. That I can say. If you're very passionate, it keeps you up, but it's stressful. It really is. But I don't regret it. You know, I like the growth. I like the stresses because at least I know if there's a stress, then I know there's a breakthrough somewhere. And once that breakthrough comes through, it's like, wow, you know, this is great. Like, so it's one of them things. But
let me tell you is that, and this goes for consumers that are on this, are watching us right now, or people that are thinking of opening up their own businesses. Don't think it's easy. It's not easy at all. I've built and destroyed businesses. Okay, because I was either too quick for the business or too slow for it. But I've done that, and the reason why, and the reason why all of my business as of late have not happened that way. I've had lots of successes because I've learned from my mistakes. Now, you know, we'll go a little bit into my background. I started my first business in college. I literally out of pure necessity. When I was in the College of Engineering in the University of Puerto Rico in Mayagüez, I needed a computer. But I came from a poor family. We couldn't, computers back in the day, IBM XT, don't laugh, it's pretty old, okay? That was a $5,000 computer. An IBM would charge you $5,000. You can't, $5,000, I said, what? So I literally had to build my own computer. I taught myself how to build my own computer, and then I built my own. And one of my friends asked me, well, can you build one for me? And I went ahead and I built one for him. And I said, well, if I can build one for him, I can build one for, well, you know, I was making 60 grand when I was in my third year.
That's a business right there.
Right there. I mean, I